If you've made it here, good luck in your championship. We want to hear from you. If you end up being a winner. If you lose, I don't want to hear about that. I only want to hear from winners so I can retweet it. Make me seem like a genius, okay?
The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. It is the finals of your fantasy football leagues, and if they go into week 18, well, that's on you for having a terrible league, all right? Smash the like and sub to the channel. Well, you are here because we are discussing the week 17 rankings by position. If you're looking for the rankings lists, they are down in the description and on dknetwork.com. Additionally, you can skip to each of the positions where Jake and I will talk about all of those in the time codes down in the description. And in the Spotify poll for this episode, I'm asking you the question, who is the one pickup player that you will insert into your championship lineups that will win you the championship? I'm curious to know what you, the people, think. You can comment down in the YouTube section as well, but it always helps us more if you can do that in the Spotify episode section. So even if you're not subbed on Spotify, this is a good opportunity to sub on Spotify and then answer that question to help us out. Give us a late Christmas gift, all right? Jake Ciely from theathletic.com. You don't even know that Jerick McKinnon's on IR, pal. Get better.
Actually, we'll start with that. I have so many things. I have my Christmas shirt on the day after that I didn't wear last week. I have breaking news, Pat. My first major issue with Nicole is my wife. We watched Memento over the weekend, and she thought it was just weird.
It is kind of weird.
It is, but that was her biggest takeaway. I was like, yeah, but it was a really great movie. She's like, yeah, it's just kind of weird, and I don't know, the ending, and I'm like, that's the point. And so, yeah, we have a first. I don't know if I can continue on now, Pat.
Well, I watched Southland Tales with my wife last night, and she's like, this movie is horrible. I was like, I know, but it's like secretly awesome. She's like, no, it's horrible. I was like, yeah, well, I can see that.
It's just straight up awful.
No, it's a movie.
Yeah, the Jerick McKinnon thing. So,
I was going to say,
go ahead.
It's a movie that makes no sense and relies solely on vibes. So if you don't vibe with it, then you're completely out. I'm going on a movie review podcast this week to talk about Southland Tales. Like, I need to refresh my memory on this because I like this movie so much. It is really bad, but if you're looking for an epic that takes a big swing and has a big miss, Southland Tales is the movie for you.
I was going to say, I was wondering if you're going to follow up with it was a big miss. But yes, the poll, is there any other answer than the great, wonderful first-round pick from 2 years ago than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, speaking of the Jerick McKinnon situation? That now Pacheco's concussed?
Yeah, let's see. Let's jump to the injuries that we have going into Week 17 to give you a refresher on what happened in case, you were celebrating Christmas and spending time with your family and didn't stress over every single thing that happened. Isaiah Pacheco is, and I spelled it wrong again. I don't know why I spell Isaiah wrong every single week. Either way, it's kryptonite for me. He has a concussion. He exited the game.
Wait, didn't you get it right? You got it right.
Do I have it right?
Yeah, you got it right.
I feel like I'm missing an H.
That's right. No, he's missing an A, and you have it right. He's missing the first A.
Yeah, see, when I see it, it looks wrong, but I suppose it is right. So anyway, he has a concussion. As someone who bet the under of his 3.5 receptions in that game, and he had 4 for 0 yards and got hurt. Screw off, Isaiah Pacheco. I have no idea if he's going to play this week or not. I would guess not based on some of the things that we've seen, although it's funny that you had tweeted out earlier in the week when we were discussing the Pittman news that, it does, and the Trevor Lawrence news, that it seems like guys are able to come back from concussions a little bit more quickly at this time of the season. I think Pittman ruined it for himself, by the way, because he had come out and cleared protocol. He was practicing full, and then he suffered a setback on the weekend. But that was after he had come out with comments saying that he was essentially knocked unconscious during the game. So he had cleared protocol, he made these comments, and all of a sudden, mysteriously, he's back in protocol and didn't play.
Yeah, you're the one that brought it up on last week's show, talking about how all these quarterbacks are. Derek Carr, he cleared twice, or like his injury, but then also the concussion. Everybody's getting magically fixed at the end of the year. Yeah, I think that's a really good theory there with the Michael Pittman thing, is that he ruined it for himself. But yes, as of today, the other reason I'm assuming no Pacheco is not just because of the concussions, because he had the injuries and he just came back. So there's other injuries plus the concussion. I don't know. I mean, they have what's his name? I always forget him, the actual name of the running back behind him that everybody was super excited for, that they picked up earlier this year when Clyde Edwards got hurt. And then Pacheco was banged up. Well, I can't think of his name.
They elevated they elevated LaMichael Pirine.
They LaMichael Pirine?
Yeah.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting the rookie everybody was going bananas for.
Well,
he's not even on.
You gonna say they haven't made
Not there
any.
anymore.
They elevated P. Ryan once Jarek went on to injured reserve. So Jarek is out for the rest of the season. He might be able to come back in the playoffs. They make it deep enough after the 4 weeks. But right now, yeah, it's just Clyde Edwards-Helaire and P. Ryan at the moment. We'll see.
Deneric Prince.
Who?
Remember Deneric Prince? Remember Deneric Prince?
Not really.
Yeah, middle of the season. Okay, there you go.
Would I have
That's what I was
reason
trying to think of.
to remember that?
Well, because he plays for the Chiefs, and that's when Edwards-Helaire was actually out. And then it was Jerick McKinnon when he first started getting banged up. So it was kind of like, oh, God, who's the next one up behind Pacheco at the time, which didn't matter because Pacheco wasn't missing time. But yes, Deneric Prince. But if that tells you that P. Ryan was elevated, that Prince isn't. I don't even know. We'll get fact-checked right now. We're going to finish the show, Pat. Somebody's going to be like, Deneric Prince has been hurt since week 14.
Well, you look at that stuff. I really don't give a shit, so it doesn't really bother me at all. So Pacheco, I do not have in the rankings right now. I do not have Ramondre in the rankings. He missed week 16. I just don't think we're going to see him for the rest of the year. And since Zeke has been great, Zach Moss, I believe I have as in, because he was pretty close to playing last week. If I don't have him, we can add him in. I don't have Brian Robinson in with his hamstring injury. He missed the week 16 game against the Jets. Josh Jacobs missed week 16 as well, although he seemed to be a game time decision. I'm guessing that he's going to play this week. And then Jarek ended up getting placed on injured reserve. So that brings us to the rankings, and I mean, it's just kind of pick your poison of who you got left. It's, CMC, he's number 1. Kyron Williams is number 2. Rashad White just continues to score 19 points a week every week. So he's number 3. Kamara coming off the terrible game, but it's an extended week. Now they're playing the Bucks. Gibbs, Cook, Mostert, Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, and Ezekiel Elliott. You got a problem with that top 10?
Not much. I mean, you do have Zach Moss back. I mean, I feel a little bit better about Jonathan Taylor than Bijan any given week, just on the trust factor. You also, not that I'm going to complain, but you got James Cook coming off a bad game too. All right, you can talk about missing some. I bet the over on the receiving yards on that one. That was fun with the big fat whopping 0, which all of a sudden went out the window. So I do think you get a little bit of a bounce back, but it's New England at home. Like if it was my lineup, I could say I would trust Taylor more still. So outside of that, it just comes down to the Jonathan Taylor trust. Like I would play Jonathan Taylor one spot in front of Bijan, but I also trust him more than James Cook. But we're also talking about the top 10, so who the hell cares? Because as you always say, you're starting him anyway, especially if you're in the championship game. Who are you benching James Cook for? James Conner? No.
Now, maybe Kenneth Walker. He's at number 11. Etienne at number 12. That entire offense, I kind of feel bad for the Jags offense at this point. They have the Black Knight from Holy Grail at quarterback. He just gets a new injury.
I tweeted that out
single
yesterday.
Week. It's outrageous.
I tweeted that out. The I'm invincible, where he's got just the one leg and both arms are gone. And somebody, of course, was just like, nobody gets more free passes for excuses than Trevor Lawrence. I'm like, thanks, guy. This is a Wendy's. Drive through.
He does. I mean, he does get a ton of excuses. However, it's kind of his own fault because he continues to play through a high ankle sprain, a concussion, a shoulder injury. If he just sat out, no one would have a problem with it.
That's true. You're not wrong about that. Carolina's pass defense has been pretty strong, but their run defense is abysmal. So, yes, Travis Etienne there, especially. I don't even care if it's Beathard. I still consider Travis Etienne top 15, no problem.
Yeah, Mixon number 13. Aaron Jones, even with Dylan back, got sniped at the goal line, but he looked really good in that game against, the bottom-ranked run defense in the league in Carolina. Still, it was nice to see him play really well. Saquon, Breece Hall, Chuba Hubbard, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, and David Montgomery are the top 20. After that, we got Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams, Ty Chandler, Devon A-Chain. Until he gets like a full workload, it's really tough to trust him too much, although his upside is kind of in the range of some of these other guys. I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire at number 26. Don't super trust CEH yet. Austin Eckler, James Conner, Devin Singletary, Najee, Gus, Jerome Ford, Khalil Herbert, Jalen Warren. Then we're into like Antonio Gibson, Tajay Spears. If you're in the championship game, you're probably not relying on these guys. So in general, running back seems to be the easiest position to fill every single week, especially for lineups this far along in the fantasy season. You ride your healthy guys that got you there, and it's the only one that you would have a chance to really plug in and play would be CEH, but how much do you trust him?
Yeah, I was going to say, so the other one that you might plug in and play would be Khalil Herbert if Deonta Foreman's not back. But even with Herbert in that scenario, against Atlanta, you probably stop right around the same range as CEH. It's the how much do you trust? How much are you really going to swap somebody out in week 17? If you're here I can't imagine, unless you were somebody who had Pacheco, I can't imagine that you need any of these running backs down here. But those would be the only two where I could see sliding into your lineup, unless you brought him up. Ramondre Stevenson surprises us and does return. I don't think I'm with you. I think he and Brian Robinson probably just, as you mentioned last week, don't even play out the season because why? But they might be somebody. But again, I mean, we're talking about running backs you stop at 25 for. So unless you got an injury, like unless you lost Pacheco, I don't really see anybody that needs these running backs. As you said, running backs as simplest as ever been, probably.
Well, I think it is until you get to number 20. I think that David Montgomery is still a strong start, but against Dallas, in Dallas, it's still indoors. They might just rely heavily on the rush game there, and he might just score 3 touchdowns. So you kind of have to play him. After that, though, like Pollard, Swift, Javonte, Chandler, A-Chain, Edwards-Helaire, Eckler, Connors. I think those 8 guys, you can kind of shuffle the deck with them any way that you want to go. Like if you told me that you wanted Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 21 over Tony Pollard, I think that's a reasonable case based on the results that we've seen. If you wanted to bump those guys down or up in any sort of direction, I would get it. I think there's sort of a cluster of 8 players, though. And then you get into hell, you can throw Singletary, Najee, Jerome Ford, and Gus Edwards into that mix, too, if you really wanted to. And to speak of the Donta Foreman thing, he missed the game due to personal matters. It wasn't an injury, so we don't really know what's going on. I would expect him to play this week, though.
That was a weird one. Yeah, it was questionable up until they said late in the week that it was personal. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I'm not going to guarantee he plays, but I was just bringing that up just in case. Just if he's out, you can feel better about Khalil Herbert. I actually had he and Rashawn Johnson real close last week because I think that's the perfect example. Like that's the upside if you want to chase a ceiling play. Like maybe you had injuries at wide receiver. Like, oh my God, I think my wide receivers in flex league scored a whopping 9 combined points with DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson. No, it doesn't even matter who the other one was. That's how bad it was against Jimmy Eisenberg. Go ahead. But in that scenario where I was already down from Thursday and Saturday with Deontay Johnson, especially, if I'm shooting for the upside, like the Khalil Herbert play is something like you could do, but I bring that in to say that's the Clyde Edwards-Helaire situation is that yes, he should be the lead. Yes, he should be top 20. Yes, he should get the opportunities. But is it guaranteed? No. Is Khalil Herbert in that scenario guaranteed to do the exact same thing again? No, because just 2 weeks ago when it was Donta Foreman, they came out the next week and it was Roschon Johnson. And so like that just was a scenario where I wouldn't want to trust them. But if I need that ceiling play would be something I would go for. Like if it's a ceiling play, I'd play him over Javonte Williams. If it's pure ceiling, I could see playing him over James Conner, although James Conner just had a big game, but you get my point.
You're talking about Khalil Herbert or Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Both of them in those scenarios.
No, I don't think I would. I don't think I would consider either of them over Javonte Williams.
Javonte Williams has been awful.
I understand that, but he still gets the ball near the goal line. He's still their most useful running back, and this is just a much better matchup this week.
So like what do you always say? It's the Derrick Henry thing. So when he gets a touchdown, he still only scores 11 points? No, thank you. If I'm going pure ceiling.
Yeah, see, I don't know about that because the multiple touchdowns are on the board for him. And when we think about, you can talk about ceiling. There has to be some context for floor, too, because Herbert could have 0 points if Foreman's back. Even if Foreman's not back, he could have 0 points.
And I said that. I said, but I'm chasing pure ceiling. I mean, look at this. How many times? 3 games over 11 points? Scoring touchdown, like 16 he got with a touchdown. He also got a touchdown in 9.4 last week on 2.2 yards per carry for Jonathan. I'm saying pure ceiling. I understand the 0. I'm giving you the scenario that I was playing out where I'm behind already. My team is already disappointing. I need a pure ceiling play. I want to risk the 0. That's all I'm saying. Javonte Williams has no ceiling.
Even in that scenario, I would still play Javonte because of the Chargers matchup and to flip it around. Based on what we've seen basically the past 8 weeks since the trade deadline, Chicago is like impossible to run on.
I don't disagree, but yeah.
And the other team.
What's that? Wait. What is that? What is Chicago going to have being run? I'm not talking about Atlanta though.
Because the other team that's also kind of impossible to run on, as we've seen, is Atlanta.
Oh well, I'm still going ceiling. This is just a ceiling argument.
I mean, I'd rather just pick up Clyde Edwards-Helaire and play him.
Okay, well, that might be not an option for a lot of people.
Yeah, okay. I'm not digging your Khalil Herbert here. I just don't see it in terms of like upside. I mean, best case scenario might be 20 points. Most likely scenario, 4 points.
Okay, but the 20 points is more likely than that's not Javonte Williams has done all year.
We'll see. I mean, do you want to? I wish there was a way we could bet on this. but there isn't really.
We're also the bet contingent on the fact that Deonta Foreman doesn't play.
I suppose so. What do you do with Ty Chandler at number 24? He got all the work. He scored a touchdown. He was a 0 in the receiving game. They stopped running the ball after like 8 minutes into the game. Now against Green Bay's been a bottom 3 defense over the past 8 weeks. I think, I mean, I'm at 24. That's ahead of A-Chain. I mean, I think that's your scenario right there. Like, A-Chain could explode for 50 points. We've seen that. It just doesn't seem likely to happen at this point.
No, because of the use. And although maybe he gets a little more work with no Jalen Waddle, it just, that's probably Cedric Wilson, which we'll talk about at wide receiver, but maybe a little bit more work in that kind of scenario. But it's Baltimore. I mean, this game could just turn out to be a low-scoring game from their side of things. I mean, we just saw what they did. No, I'm not saying Tua is Brock Purdy, but and that being a compliment to Tua, as in that way, I think he's better to be able to withstand that defense than Purdy is. But still, I wouldn't put H-An higher if that's. I think Ty Chandler, where you have him, is fine. I'd actually, to bring this into the conversation, I know that you're talking about the matchup here. If we still have no Alexander Madison, but you have Madison in the ranks. If we had no Alexander Madison, I would say Ty Chandler up by like Josh Jacobs, but that's it. I mean, we're talking 4 or 5 spots. So you could be like David Montgomery. Does he score his touchdown against the Cowboys? That's a fair spot for him for the risk that you're running there. Ty Chandler with all the work, I would stop right there. I don't think. How could you play him with Josh Jacobs coming back against the Colts? Derrick Henry's got a pretty good matchup with the Texans. I just don't think you could push Ty Chandler much higher.
I'm with you. Madison was back last week. He just didn't do anything.
That's what back as in like in the workload. Like he wasn't a full practice until the end of the week. Like it comes down to like, is he practicing at full?
Yeah, I would have been interested to see what the split between them would have been if it was a more competitive game early without the Vikings playing catch up for a lot of it. And then even when they took the lead coming out of the half, they immediately got back down again and stopped running the ball. I think he had 1 carry for a negative yard in the first half. I don't think he touched the ball again.
Yeah. So we got Minnesota, Green Bay. I mean, they could stay in contention for that one, but that's also too that you like want to wait till the very last game of the week.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind Ty Chandler this week. I think it's a good matchup against Green Bay. I would roll with him. Like, out of all of like the random pickup dudes that we've had over the past few weeks, I think that he's still the best one.
I gotta tell you, if Madison's practicing in full and
Madison played. Like, what are you talking about?
I know he played, but he wasn't practicing in full the entire week. I think he practiced. I think he got in a almost full set, like a weird session on Friday. He still wasn't 100% going to that game. The reports were like he's still not 100% Madison, and then it's like there was even the report from Kevin O'Connell. They're like, he's going to get out there, but we're going to still stick with Chandler. 1, because of performance, but 2 is like that Madison is not 100%. I'm saying if he was, I just feel better about Clyde Edwards-Helaire with nobody. I mean, I'm not that concerned about P. Ryan taking snaps away from Edwards-Helaire versus Chandler with some potential loss from Madison. I could see that being a toss-up. I would actually probably go Clyde Edwards-Helaire in that scenario against Cincinnati too. Cincinnati can't stop anybody.
No, they cannot stop anyone, especially on the ground. I still have more faith in Ty Chandler than Clyde. I've been down the Clyde Edwards-Helaire road in the past. Not great.
We've all been burned too many times. That's why.
All right. Any more running backs you want to talk about?
No.
Okay.
Do you want to answer the question now because everybody's going to ask? If there's no Josh Jacobs, where would Zamir White rank?
Well, I ran the first run of projections just to see what the answer to that would be. I did that at runthesims.com. You can always go do that at runthesims.com, by the way. You can run projections, DFS, lineup simulations, but I just ran them without. I ran them without Zach Moss, and I ran them without Josh Jacobs, just to see what they would spit out for the week. Jonathan Taylor actually has the second highest projected total of any running back behind Christian McCaffrey, and Zamir White is number 8 on the week.
Oof. I don't think I could play Zamir White over Barkley and Breece Hall. Well, we got Breece Hall, we got the Jets and Cleveland. Actually, I could see that one. Henry, Montgomery. I don't know. My biggest concern, we didn't get to see it. My biggest concern was Zamir White. If they get down, it's a bunch of Brandon Bolden and Amir Abdullah. And there was a little bit of share of there early in the game, but nobody expected that to be the outcome and went completely out the window. And they didn't even throw passes for the rest of the game. They did. There's just 0 completions. What do you attempt, 2 or 1 for the rest of the game from the second quarter on? You cannot expect that to happen again, even against the Colts. So, I mean, I get it, but man, I don't know if I could stomach sitting Barkley or Jones or Hall or even Derrick Henry for Zamir White in my championship game. But I would get it. I would understand it.
Yeah, I do think that projections are different than rankings in how you're going to assess your lineups. If you want to purely go off the numbers of the computer, Zamir White would be an incredible play this week. I think for me, yeah, number 15 is about right, I think. Like one spot behind Barkley, one spot ahead of Breece Hall for Zamir White. I think that's where I would put him.
Yeah, so your lineup, not like challenging you, I'm just asking a straight up question. So your lineup, you would bench David Montgomery if you had that option for Zamir White?
I would, yeah.
Okay. I can see it. I think the guarantee was with Montgomery.
Well, I have Josh Jacobs above Montgomery right now, and that's assuming that Josh Jacobs isn't going to just come back and have 99% of the workload. Like Zamir White is going to be involved in some capacity, whether it's a minimal capacity, a third split, whatever it might be. He's going to take something away from Josh Jacobs. I guess the part with Zamir White is, I mean, maybe even it's not even a downside upside case. It's just they're giving him the ball near the goal line, Zamir White. That's huge. And with David Montgomery, one bad carry near the goal line, and then Jahmyr Gibbs scores, and you're just left holding the bag, kind of thing.
I definitely get your point. You know what? There was one more running back that I joked about him earlier when I was talking about James Cook. I would actually have James Conner higher, just because
he's done it.
Because it comes down. I know, yeah. He's down at 28. You just had the bad matchup with the Bears.
And a bad matchup against the 49ers and scored in that game, too.
And this is actually a better matchup than people think. The Eagles can't tackle anymore. This is what we just saw 2 weeks in a row. Saquon Barkley. Like, yeah, it took volume, but I mean, we're talking about volume of Connor. They can't, they're just like bouncing off running backs at this point. It could go sideways, but James Conner and that workload, like, kind of comes into that David Montgomery. Like, I think I would actually go James Conner over David Montgomery.
Would you play him over Josh Jacobs?
I go back to, if they're going to risk playing Josh Jacobs, why would they do it unless they're just going to use him close to normal? I don't disagree with you on the fact that they're not going to give him 99% of the work and nobody else is going to get involved. But I lean Josh Jacobs just one spot. That's it. Even though the Eagles have been worse as a team of late, they're still not the Colts. I would still play Josh Jacobs against the Colts.
So Montgomery or Connor, I guess, is the question.
Connor. I would go Jacobs, Connor, Montgomery.
There we go. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's see here. James.
Auto formatting for the win.
Yeah, great. Fantastic news. Yeah, you can find all the rankings up in the description and on DK Nation. The finalized version that we're doing through the show will be the one that are posted up there, and I'll update them throughout the course of the week as well once we get a little bit more news. I didn't put Zach Moss in the rankings. Where do you think I should put him? Like, is he playable whatsoever?
Ugh, I wouldn't want to do it in my championship game.
Like, is he in the Algier, Justice Hill, Kareem Hunt, Damian Pierce range?
Jalen Warren? Like, that's just kind of, I was going to go slightly higher, but yes, I was going to say Jalen Warren, Gibbs, Spears, Brown, like that range. That's where I would put him.
Would you play Brown or would you play Zach Moss?
Cincinnati against Kansas City. Screen game. I still go Chase Brown.
Algier or Zach Moss?
Algier. I don't even care about that matchup. They still use him no matter what.
Justice Hill or Zach Moss?
Justice Hill against Miami. After that use again, that's almost a 50-50 split. I would go Justice Hill, Kareem Hunt. We got the Jets. I'd probably stop right there.
All right, Zach Moss, number 40 in the rankings. Probably someone you shouldn't be playing this week in your championship matchup. Maybe a great play in the consolation championship matchup, but not so much the actual matchup.
Or over on DraftKings and surprise everybody after he gets 50% of the work this week and scores a touchdown.
True. All right, let's move to wide receivers. You had mentioned Jalen Waddle a few minutes ago. He is not expected to play this week. He has a high ankle sprain. Jordan Addison, I don't have in the rankings either. He has an ankle injury as well. Cortland Sutton has a head injury. We'll monitor his status moving forward. Green Bay has no healthy receivers at this point. Wicks left the game after catching a touchdown with a chest injury. Christian Watson hasn't played in a month at this point, and Jaden Reed actually missed the game with a toe injury, so we'll keep their statuses updated throughout the week. Robbie Chosen has a concussion. He's probably not going to play against Baltimore, so an even better case for Cedric Wilson. We'll rank Cedric Wilson here in a second. Jamar Chase missed week 16. He has like an AC joint or a separated shoulder or something. He might try to power through it with their season on the line. We'll see. I'm expecting Michael Pittman to play this week if he was that close last week. Juju, who knows? Who cares? Marquise Brown, we'll see about his heel. I don't have him in right now. I don't think so. I don't think so, at least. Kadarius Toney, Zay Jones was called week to week. We'll see if he can end up coming back, but I wouldn't count on it. And then Keenan Allen. Do you think we'll see Keenan Allen the rest of the year?
No, I think he's done.
I don't think so either, but that's me. So the rankings themselves, CeeDee Lamb is number 1, Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra, Tyreek, Evans, DJ Moore, Debo, Ayuk, Olave, that's the top 10. Puka, Pittman, DK, Metcalf, Cooper Kupp, Rashee Rice, Devonta Smith, Devontae Adams, Calvin Ridley, Nico Collins. I don't really care who's playing quarterback. If it's just going to be Ridley there, he's going to eventually, it might be painful to watch, but he'll get there for you. Steph Diggs at number 20. What a fall he's had. T. Higgins. Amari Cooper and Garrett Wilson are just in terrible spots this week, but 22 and 23. It'd be hard to bench Amari Cooper coming off like 50 points in your lineup. Probably the reason that you're in the finals, but here we are. Chris Godwin, Hopkins, McLaurin, Jaden Reed, I have him at number 27. Cortland Sutton, I have him at number 28. Pickens, Lockett, Zay Flowers, Deontay Johnson, Brendan Cooks, Noah Brown, Drake London, Jacoby Myers, Demarcus Robinson, Gabe Davis, Josh Downs, Zay Jones I have in, but he can be replaced pretty easily in the rankings. Not that you really want to go out of your way to play Zay Jones anyway. And then you're into your JSN, Beckham, Thielen, KJ Osborne, Michael Wilson. Maybe that's even too high for Michael Wilson because he can't catch the ball. Josh Palmer, Shaheed, Chark, Demario Douglas, Jameson Williams. I do have Wicks in with Dubs as well, but we'll see about their injury status. A lot of the stuff we're just not going to know. I buried some of the Green Bay receivers because they do play in that later game. It's going to be tougher to rely on them unless you have the backups for them going forward to insert into your lineups. But Cedric Wilson is presumably going to take the spot of Jalen Waddle. Where would you rank him against the Ravens this week?
Well, so that's the interesting thing is the Ravens continue to be like the Eagles, which continue to be one of these ones where slot wide receivers and tight ends are where you get the most work, most opportunity, I should say. So Cedric Wilson in this play, like the only concern that I would have about going too crazy on this, kind of like this KJ Osborne fill-in situation, is that it could go sideways. I mean, just more opportunities as the 2 is sometimes, as we see wide receivers when they go from 2 to 1 and they get that extra defensive attention, is they're not good enough for it. So I would run that risk. In addition to the fact, this whole tight end Durham Smythe running out of the slot situation, I just don't know it's a lock. So I think he's in play. I would play Cedric Wilson over.
Would you play him over? Would you play him over Demarcus Robinson at this point? Because I wouldn't.
No, I was actually going to go lower than that. So to go back to your Michael Wilson thing, I would actually swap that out for Greg Dortch. That's what I would just switch those two. Greg Dortch is the one that you want to risk, if anybody, and I still wouldn't want to do that. Also because of slot to go against the Eagles, more slot for Dortch than Wilson. Actually, it's Rondell Moore, but not doing that. I would play Shaheed over him. I would play Shaheed probably over KJ Osborne too against Tampa Bay.
Okay.
I mean, he's been really good.
Would you play him over JSN?
Shaheed?
Yeah.
I would play Shaheed all the way up over Zay Jones at 40. I'd put him right there in that Demarcus Robinson, Davis Downs conversation. I could even see the argument of putting him over Demarcus Robinson. He's the 3 versus Shaheed being the 2.
Yeah, but I do appreciate the team that can actually complete passes at a higher rate.
I don't disagree with you. And I was just about to say, one of my championship games, I have a feeling. I lost 2 quarterbacks, and I've been playing like this roulette at the end of the year. And fortunately, I've been surviving with Joe Flacco. And now I'm legitimately in the conversation of, I picked this quarterback up only because I'm like, well, what if Joe Flacco gets hurt? And it's Derek Carr. And I think I might actually go down with my ship playing Derek Carr against Tampa Bay. Look at Derek Carr's last 2 games. He's been playing really well all of a sudden.
I feel like we discussed this like a month or so ago before he had the concussion. It was the game where they got to the red zone. I forget what game it was, but they got into the red zone 7 times and didn't score a touchdown. It's like, well, it's going to flip the other way. If they're moving the ball this well, that all of a sudden he's just going to explode for 2 weeks. It's happened. And there's no reason for it not to continue to happen against Tampa Bay, who can't stop the pass whatsoever.
I know. It's just I'm worried that that was it. He fired all his bullets out of the chamber and he's done now. So anyway,
so would you play Adam Thielen or Cedric Wilson?
Cedric Wilson at this point.
Jackson Smith and Jigba or Cedric Wilson?
against Pittsburgh. I think I'm going to straddle the fence on you. Is this Smith and Jigba would be a floor? I know Smith and Jigba is going to get me 5 to 15 points in that range. Cedric Wilson would be if I want to risk the higher upside, but I understand the floor can be 2.
And I don't even know if there's a ton of upside against the Ravens anyway, because this might not be Cedric Wilson. It may have been Cedric Wilson in a pinch when they needed him. They could run Craycraft out of there. They could run Berrios out of there. If they're trying to redesign their offense without Jalen Waddle, that just may have been what they did in a pinch.
Or, I mean, it could be the whole Jacksonville Jaguar situation where we're all sitting there for the first time. First time I got caught this year watching the this was the... Yes, I was like, I don't know who Elijah Cooks is. I did not watch any film on it. I legitimately didn't know who that was. The first time I've had this entire year, Pat. I sat there and was like, I don't know who that was. Like, I don't know that person.
I had no idea who it was. I was like, oh, good, because I played Parker Washington in my main DraftKings line. Bad swap for me last second. I went from... I think it was like Breece Hall and Ridley into like Parker Washington and someone super expensive, and both those guys sucked, and the other two like would have won me all the money.
That does suck. That's rough.
Happens.
I'm sorry.
Happens from time to time. Yeah, if you're not willing to lose, you can't win, Jake.
That is true. I think when you put Cedric Wilson in right there is a fine spot. The volume was there again for Thielen, but you want to talk about catching, and it's not because Thielen can't catch. It's that while Bryce Young has been improving some of late, the connection just is with everybody else. Like he's still throwing to Thielen. It's just the balls just aren't. I don't know where their lost rapport went, but something's not right between the two of them. So I'm okay with that spot because if it does connect a little bit, we could be a little bit higher. Gabe Davis. This comes down to, so the one thing more often than not, you brought it up a few weeks ago, and that's when I brought up the fact that when you face man-heavy teams is because Davis can get behind them, is those are the opportunities you take with Gabe Davis. The Patriots aren't as favorable as they have been. I'd actually put Davis lower, but we don't really need to go too far into that.
I'll put him lower. Would you play Beckham or Gabe Davis? Because they kind of feel like the same guy.
So I was going to say, I'll give you my answer. You could say it is Beckham because I'd put Gabe Davis down by DJ Chark. They're essentially the same wide receiver at this point.
Yeah, I'd rather still have Josh Allen throwing the ball.
Oh, no, 100%. I just meant one spot. Like I'd put him with DJ Chark, like right behind Joshua Palmer. I'm
going to put him one spot behind Beckham. I think that after looking at this, I'm going to bump up Palmer, though, above Josh Downs. Palmer's been all right.
He has been. He does get Denver, though.
That's
so
I'm not.
I want to go too crazy with him.
I'm not too concerned about Denver.
Oh, you put him in front of Downs? Actually, that's good. I mean, I actually went Joshua Palmer, Josh Downs, 1-2 the waiver wire wide receivers.
So there we are. Yeah, Denver, I think on paper, it seems like a much worse matchup than it maybe actually is. Like, Mario Douglas almost got to 100 yards on them.
A lot of short stuff, though.
That's fine. Those passes count.
I didn't say they did. I'm just clarifying for people out there.
Okay.
I'm looking down your ranks to see if there's anybody else before you even ask the question.
Exactly.
Why do you hate Tyler Boyd?
No, just not big on Tyler Boyd.
It's volume. He's really no different than Demario Douglas.
All right, I'll bump him up. Boyd. I'll bump him. Yeah, you're right. He probably should be ahead of Demario Douglas.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep him behind Chark, though.
And Curtis Samuel comes into play whether or not, it's funny enough, like if Howell plays, I'd be more interested in Curtis Samuel. If they just turned to Brissett, I'd be less inclined because Brissett is completely different than throwing. It's funny that Brissett doesn't throw deep, but for whatever reason, when he does get on this, why does he play for Washington and all of a sudden like, oh, I'm just going to start flinging the ball downfield? Like that's not who Brissett is, and all of a sudden he wants to when he comes into court. Is it one of the ones you always bring up? Like, what's the downside? You might as well just take shots downfield because you have no reason to play for anything anyway.
Well, I think that's part of the Joe Flacco resurgence, that he's playing with this defense that's amazing. I think Stefanski's just like, man, you throw a 51-49 jump ball, deep ball. It's really good. Just do that every time. And if they pick it off, no big deal. Our defense will get it back for you. Then we can try it again.
Then what's the Washington argument?
That I don't know.
Our defense is so bad it's not going to matter anyway?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll put Boyd at number 49, one spot ahead of Demario Douglas. The only one I wanted to talk about, because CJ Stroud is expected to be back, is Xavier Hutchinson. Yeah, like if you needed an absolute flyer, I think you and I have talked about him a few times, and even watching that Texans game on Sunday, you could see how they were trying to use him as Tank Dell, running the same routes, trying to get him involved in sweeps, short routes, trying to get him like down the seam and behind the defense. It's just Case Keenum can't get him the ball, so it's useless.
I know, so much so that they brought in Davis Mills, and he didn't do a much better job of getting anybody the ball. Yeah, I do think there's the Hutchinson play where you have like the Pierce and the Wandells of the world. If CJ Stroud is back, it's something, you and I talked about immediately that week after Tank Dell got hurt, and I said that's the role he's going to fill. Obviously, I wouldn't start him over anybody like inside the top 50, even where you have him right now, knowing that this week, because Noah Brown is out there. Noah Brown and Nico Collins, strong plays, of course, but if you're desperate, yeah, like that, you have them in the conversation. Like if you're desperate, I'm trying to see if there's anybody behind. Like Quentin Johnston, I'd put a little bit higher. Like I'd go Quentin Johnston over Traylon
Not
Burks.
happening.
It takes one catch for 50 yards.
Yeah, he has to catch
That's
it.
all.
That's the real problem here. Guy
But
sucks.
what does Traylon Burks ever get one catch for 50 yards?
I mean, what are you talking about? Number 70 in the rankings? Who cares?
I am going to one more in your rankings. Even before Cortland Sutton was getting, Marvin Mims has started to get a lot of use at the end of the season. So if there is no Cortland Sutton, I think Marvin Mims is in play ahead of Hutchinson, actually ahead of Samuel. I think he's pushing top 50 if there is no Sutton.
All right, it's not that random other dude. Was it Brandon Johnson?
Brandon Johnson? We've done this before. What, his one catch for a touchdown?
Yeah, he had 3 catches. I think he led them in receiving.
Which is sad.
Yeah.
Did that happen earlier this year too? It was the led them in receiving one random week.
I thought it was little Jordan Humphrey
when Judy got hurt.
who did it.
He did it too.
Yeah, fun. Broncos. Just don't play Sutton, play Javonte Williams, don't play anyone else, and you're probably good to go.
Including Russell Wilson as we go to quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, he's good for your 15 points a week. That's kind of thing. We're going to go tight ends, actually, before we get into quarterbacks. So tight end injuries. Cole Kmet exited the game. He came into the game. I have game instead of knee. I don't know why I put that in there. Still got Christmas brain on the go, and I'm doing my own proofreading because everyone else is off, Jake, and it's not going well. But Cole Kmet has a knee injury. He came into the game with a quad injury, but he exited the game. So no word on whether or not he's going to play against Atlanta. TJ Hawkinson is probably out for the season, so he's not expected to play in week number 17. Luke Musgrave has the eligibility to return as he did last week, although it did not happen, so not sure. You're going to have to pay attention to reports on that. Just more Packers that are banged up, and that is the latest of games. I would say that if you're relying on Kraft, keep an eye out on that all week and have the backup plan in place, because you probably don't want to play Kraft if Musgrave is back. Hunter Henry did not play in week number 16, neither did Greg Dulcich or Michael Mayer. I don't really care about any of those guys at this point, so it doesn't really matter to me. Is there any, when you did the waiver column, was there a standout tight end pickup that you saw?
Kraft, it's been Kraft for a few weeks getting that work, but as you mentioned, the Luke Musgrave, if back, is the big problem, and then you would turn to Luke Musgrave, but I don't even know that Luke Musgrave wouldn't be kind of the scenario like a Patriots type of situation, or even one of these. The Giants, even with Waller and all of a sudden Daniel Bellinger out there for 40-45% of the tight end opportunities, like I just don't know that Musgrave would be 100% back. So Hunter Henry, we know if he plays, but I have a big question. And then, I mean, the other 4 I listed was Okonkwo, Logan Thomas, K-Dot, and Juwan Johnson. It's kind of gross.
So in the rankings, I have Trey McBride at number 1. Even coming off the, quote, down game, he still had, double-digit targets. That's exactly what you're looking for. Just a bad game all around from the Cardinals. So McBride, Kittle, Laporta, Kelsey, Ingram, top 5. Ferguson, Likely, and Njoku against the Jets. Could be a real rough scene, or it could be a great game. Who knows? Dalton Schultz, Goddard, Pitts, Kraft, Kincaid, Taysom Hill, Pat Freiermuth. You got Gerald Everett. I put Cole Kmet in at number 17 under the assumption that he's not 100%, but we'll see about that. Darren Waller, Conklin, Okonkwo, K-Dot, and Tanner Hudson. Josh Oliver filling in for KJ Osborne if Jordan Addison is out. They're running out of options here that maybe Oliver can get himself involved. I wouldn't trust it. That'd be more like hey, I need a $2,500 showdown player or $400 showdown player Sunday night, not plug into my championship lineup kind of guy.
Exactly. I was just about to say, we're at the point of the season where you ranked 10 more tight ends than I'll rank. I'm only ranking 25 at this point of the year.
Yeah, I got to get to a word count, Jake.
Is that what it is? All right, then move up Durham Smythe. There you go.
Where the hell do I even have Durham Smythe on here? I probably forgot his
You got
name.
him 34.
Oh, there we go. I'll bump him up. Bump him up to where? Darren Waller or
In
Smythe?
front of Noah Fant. No, in front of Noah Fant, just the 28. I just want to get him inside your top 30.
There you go. Like after you get to, I want to say, I guess if Kincaid doesn't, or not Kincaid, if Musgrave doesn't play, I think the top 12 are like, all right. And then you could feasibly put Josh Oliver ahead of Dalton Kincaid at this point. It's just a complete gamble at all these other jabroni tight ends.
I mean, you go through their game logs and it's like 2.3, 3.7, and then like 15. I mean, that's just who these tight ends are. You're not wrong at all. That's why outside of the Durham Smythe joke, I was just going to be like, done. That was a perfect list. Let's move on.
I'm just looking at the projections for this week after running the simulations. The best of like the really crappy tight ends is actually Gerald Everett. He would be 9th in fantasy points by the simulations.
And
Tanner Hudson
Gerald Everett.
And Tanner Hudson would be 11. Yeah, the Sims love Gerald Everett because his median projection is always, I mean, he's projected to be 9th this week at 7.8 points.
And that's part of the problem too. Like I always run my projections like Gerald Everett's always like 15, 16, 17. I'm like, but I'm not playing him. Like I'm not playing him unless I want a desperation 14, 15 and understand that Gerald Everett will lose 2 touchdowns to Donald Parham, your boy, and it's not going to matter at the end. I mean, but that's all these tight ends.
Yeah,
Darren Waller had a 0 till the end of the game.
Yeah, do you need 4 for 33? Then Gerald Everett is your man.
With a potential touchdown.
With maybe a touchdown. What's he projected for? He's projected for 0.2 touchdowns. So once every 5 games, he's going to score a touchdown.
That's true. And for everybody out there, the Denver Broncos aren't the best matchup. They gave up their most fantasy points to tight ends because Sam Laporta had 8 billion points against them 2 weeks ago. And that's all it took to push them. The Denver Broncos were legitimately like middle of the pack because they gave up, who was it? Was it Komet? They gave up 20 points early this year. And then that was the second one. And they went legitimately from like 12th or 13th to first overall in points allowed to tight ends. That's why you don't go by points allowed only.
Okay, good note for the people out there. Quarterbacks can be pretty interesting because I don't think we're going to have a lot of this information until we get deeper into the week. So right now, I'm just going to assume Lawrence is going to play because he plays every week. But like you said, he's a walking triage unit at this point. Brock Purdy, I'm expecting him to be back. I think that the quote-unquote stinger is a real thing, but they also had to get him out of there because he was playing so poorly. Sam Howell got benched. I assume we'll see him again. I have no idea. Tommy DeVito got benched. Maybe it's Tyrod time. CJ Stroud missed the week with a concussion. He'll probably be back. Zach Wilson missed the week with a head injury. I don't think he'll be back. Will Levis missed last week. He might be back this week. And then Pickett, God only knows, right?
For the Steelers' sake, hopefully he's not back.
I mean, that could very well be the case. I mean, I don't know where I'd want to go.
When did the offense start working?
When Mason Rudolph
When Kenny Pickett got hurt.
Yeah. A little bit. There's a golf one and done, by the way. Do you always play in the golf one and done? And then you like quit after 3 weeks because you're so bad at it. But if anyone out there
I don't ever quit on it.
You just end up coming dead last every year?
No, I told you my strategy. I should just do this from the jump off. Is I start off really poorly for like the first month and a half, and then I just start taking dudes with fun names, and I start doing better.
That is the strategy that people have employed. So here's the deal. Go to fantasygolfchampionships.com. The link is down in the description right now. And you can play it in most states, not every single state. You can't play it in Ontario, but most of Canada. Here's the deal, though. If you know someone in one of the states where you can do it, just register in that state. You can make your picks from anywhere, just like a DraftKings lineup. So you can go do that. It's $200 to play for the year. So it goes from January through August. You pick one golfer per week per tournament. Once you use them once, you can't use them again. The winner gets $80,000. Sounds pretty good.
That's a pretty good payout.
Yeah, second place is like $56,000 this year. Everyone who finishes inside the top 10 with the payout structure that I worked out gets at least 5 figures.
Yeah, I I wish I made it down to that far, but yeah, usually my name's fun. It gets me back in the mix, but it's never, I'm just going to do it from the jump off this year. Maybe this time I'll be in the mix.
Well, in the quarterback rankings, I do have Derek Carr above Joe Flacco. So it's Hurts, Dak, Lamar, Allen, Fields, Purdy, Stafford, Mahomes, Tua, Stroud, Goff, Baker, Murray, Wilson, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, Gardner Minshew, Geno Smith, Jordan Love, Nick Mullins, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Flacco, Jake Browning. I could see Flacco having a big game, but Thursday night against the Jets just sounds like such a disaster.
You don't want to play the revenge narrative? You don't want to do that?
I was thinking about that for someone else. It was Tyrod. If Tyrod gets in, he's played on like 13 teams, hasn't he?
I don't think he's played for the Rams, though.
I feel like he may have played for the Rams at one point.
I don't think so. I don't think he was on the Rams.
Tyrod Taylor.
Are you looking it up?
Yeah, because I mean, he might not have played, but he may have been on the roster. Who knows? He's currently on the Giants, according to Google, so that's good to know.
I knew that. It's not. You're gonna find it. It's not.
No, it was the Chargers he played for. That's right.
Yeah.
And they stabbed. They
How
stabbed
do
him.
you not remember that?
Yeah, they stabbed him in the lung with a
almost
needle,
killed
and then
him.
Herbert played. That's right.
They almost murdered the guy.
So I think
I would play. You know what?
This is the most critical decision, unless you have like one of the absolute stud quarterbacks. If you've been playing some roulette here, so I think this is a real discussion this week at quarterback. It's usually like, yeah, play that guy or that guy, but you might be in a pinch and have to play someone. You might not want to play Brock Purdy this week. I am suggesting that you do play Brock Purdy this week against the Commanders as long as he is playing. Hell, I would play Sam Darnold against the Commanders if Sam Darnold is playing inside the top 10. I'd probably play them both over Tua.
Ooh, Sam Darnold. No, I'm not playing Sam. Sam Darnold would check in behind Derek Carr, which, by the way, I played Derek Carr over Russell Wilson.
Okay. Would you play him over Kyler Murray?
I thought about that while I was waiting, while you were going through your explanation, and I'm like, against Philly, that's the thing, is like he can run. I'd say, I put it this way, as you know, even with the floor of the running for Kyler Murray, I would still say Kyler Murray is the ceiling bust play over Derek Carr. Derek Carr is the safer one at this point. I would take Derek Carr over Kyler Murray. I think I would.
Would you play him over Baker? Because I have an interesting Baker theory here. That is a very main character opinion because it revolves around me. But I have a gigantic future on the Bucs to win the NFC South from the preseason at 10-1. And if they just win this game, they're good to go. So I have a feeling that there's good vibes around Baker, talking about mutual interest in re-signing him because he's playing so well. This is the game where he shows up and throws for 60 yards and 4 picks.
I was just about to say this is where it goes sideways. That's why I feel. That's how I feel about Derek Carr, and that's how I feel about Joe Flacco. I feel like all these storybook endings are coming this week at the same time.
I mean, I don't know if they're going to continue to play Nick Mullins or they're going to go to Reed, but Mullins just like casually throws for 400 yards a game. He throws 4 picks, but he's throwing a ton.
He's Jameis Winston on the Saints. This is great for fantasy. I'm not upset with it.
Should I have him higher?
Nick Mullins?
I have him at 19. Like, would you play him over Russell Wilson?
If I'm going for ceiling, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
But the floor is 4. You talk about those 4 interceptions might come without touchdowns.
They might,
There's that possibility.
or if he starts out the game with just another horrendous pick, he might just get benched.
That's the other thing too, of course.
So yeah, I'll drop him. I'll play Minshew over him, but I'll play him over Russell Wilson. I'm going to rejig these a little bit. There we go.
I was gonna say I could see even playing him over Geno against the Steelers. The Steelers defense woke up too.
Oh
like,
yeah. Now, has the Steelers defense woke up? Because the only 2 times that they've looked good in the past 2 months has been against the Bengals.
That's fair. I was gonna say they've been playing better. Like they weren't terrible outside of the Bengals games. They've been playing. I think the whole thing this team switched when Kenny Pickett got benched. Like look, Trubisky even had a good game for fantasy purposes.
Sure, for fantasy purposes, but like that defense did give up like 24 to New England in the first half. They got passed all over by Bailey Zappi.
Hey, Bailey Zappi played well again this week. I'm waiting for the Bailey Zappi conversation to be had for this New England papers and be like, oh, maybe they shouldn't draft a quarterback. Let's see what Zappi has.
Yeah, great. I think Tua is an interesting one going up against Baltimore. Like, what's your trust factor in him down Jalen Waddle in this spot? I think you gotta play. Like, would you play Stroud or Tua?
Oh, I'd play Tua
for sure.
I like. I love Stroud, but what did I do to that team? Stroud's going to play 1 quarter and hurt himself again because of what I did. I purposely didn't wear the hat today just because I want them to play, even though the hat would have matched a lot better with the shirt, just to tell you how worried I am of what I've done to the Texans. I would still play Tua because what I was going to say for your question as you asked it, Stroud without Waddle is like, I feel, or Tua without Waddle, I feel like this is like 95% Tua. If it was no Tyreek Hill, I'd be way more concerned. And I would be considering Derek Carr over Tua in this matchup without Tyreek Hill. But with Tyreek Hill, I'm not that concerned. I think you can make up Waddle with their weapons more than you can make up Tyreek Hill.
If you had to guess where Nick Mullins projects this week amongst quarterbacks, where would you guess?
Projections?
Yeah.
Against Green Bay?
Yeah.
7.
8.
There you go.
Yeah, 19 points. What do we have here?
Yeah, it's Green Bay.
33 pass attempts, 22 completions, 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick and a half. He does fuel his passing with all those picks. People forget that.
Pick and a half seems possibly low.
It's a projection. That's like the highest one I've seen all year.
This is especially because J.R. Alexander is back. So he could get 2 himself.
Yeah, doesn't he usually get lit up by Justin Jefferson, though?
Is he the one that get? Yeah, I don't remember.
I feel like
Now you're going to send me down a rabbit hole before I do my rest of my rankings today. Thank you. Now you give me something to write on. By the way, you'll like my fun rankings this week.
what are they?
It's the Pat Mayo graphics we've done all year. I'm ranking them.
Oh, nice, the thumbnails. I don't have one for this episode,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Oh,
Photoshop
well,
guys.
We'll make up for it.
Photoshop guys on holiday.
Oh, okay. Great Photoshop guy, by the way.
Oh, fantastic. AI art. Who knew?
So yes, you'll like those.
The other critical decision that you'll have to make without just kind of rolling the same lineup that you've been rolling out the entire time is defenses. So I have Cleveland at number 1 on Thursday night against the Jets. That seems very logical. San Francisco on the road against Washington at number 2. Then we have Buffalo, New England, the Jets on Thursday night in that same game. Dallas, Chicago, Indy, Vegas. Baltimore, the Rams, Tampa Bay, Seattle, New Orleans, Philly, Minnesota, Green Bay, then the Giants and Jacksonville. So there's a lot of options this week. Is out of the streamers that you suggested to pick up, who were the highest ranked?
Raiders.
Raiders? Yeah.
Raiders were 1. Raiders were 1. They've been playing, I mean, just great since
The Raiders averaged 30 fantasy points a week over the last 2.
over the last 2. Yeah, the Rams were up there, and you have them at 11. The one that oh no, I was gonna say I missed you when you were breezing through. I missed Chicago. I was gonna say I have Chicago higher than you. No, you have Chicago right there with me. It's like I went Raiders, Rams, Bears. Not much of a difference between yours. I just always go back to. Are you factored? I forget. We kind of glossed over at quarterback. You have Heineke. Oh yeah, Heineke's starting the rest of the season. So yeah, I'm actually okay with the Bears there. I should probably swap the Rams and Bears in mine. So who else do you have? Seattle at 13 was my next one. The Colts got bumped. I actually bumped the Colts down.
Okay, I can
last
do
week.
I can do that too. You know what? It's on the Colts, and I was going to bring this up on the spread show, and I probably still will. So if you watch both shows, it's the same point twice. Atlanta had one play on Sunday, pass 2 running backs, and the Colts are like, you know what? We're not going to defend it. How about that?
I dare you to keep doing it.
Yeah, it was outrageous.
You're not wrong on that. So I guess the Raiders, like we just saw, the biggest problem is now it's kind of the version of the Falcons argument for defenses facing them. If you're going to run and not even throw the damn ball, where's the opportunities for the defense outside of hopefully forcing a fumble? So that's why, and I said last week, that's part of it kind of goes in double two-handed there, is that I would actually worry about the Colts not even just getting many opportunities to pick off Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah. I mean, that also is a particular game script, though, if the Raiders do jump out to the big lead. But that'll do it. Championship week. That's another year, Jake. Year 9.
Yeah, we'll still do more shows. What time are you doing the recap show on Sunday night? I told you I promised I'd try to make one of these.
Well, we didn't do one this Sunday night. We're not doing one this Sunday night. We might do one in the new year. Might. For week 18.
Okay.
We might do that.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay.
Maybe not.
Just for the insanity of it all.
Yeah, it might be over for this year. Who knows? Or I guess for 2024 until next football season, because there's just Sunday, Monday becomes, now with golf starting next week, Sunday, Monday is very congested for me.
That is true. You and your golf is so much fun.
Yeah, I get
that sounded so sarcastic. It wasn't. The tone of my voice.
Some of us need to do something in the football off season and I don't want to pay attention to baseball. And no one cares about baseball. So
I
it's helpful.
knew you were going there too. Like, it's just, mine's baseball, yours is golf. I was legitimately being serious. I heard my voice as I said it, and I was like, wow, that sounded really sarcastic.
Well, Jake Ciely at All In Kid. The waiver column is up at theathletic.com. Rankings out tonight at midnight because we're doing this a day late.
Yeah, tonight at midnight. Yeah. So stay up and check out Pat Mayo's graphics ranked throughout the year.
There we are. You can link to this show that doesn't have one of the graphics.
I will do it. There you go.
People are like, where are all these graphics? What's going on here?
Check out the new shirt.
Yeah, runthesims.com for your projections, simulations, even the prop sniper tool that's up there that runs the simulations and gives you the best odds at each of the books to help you try to win some gish on the props market. Smash like, sub to the channel, and answer the Spotify question of who the best single pickup could be. A defense, could be a quarterback, could be a running back, whoever it is for championship week in week number 17. If you've made it here, good luck in your championship. We want to hear from you if you end up being a winner. If you lose, I don't want to hear about that. I only want to hear from winners so I can retweet it, make me seem like a genius, okay? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!